welcome back to my channel and the first video in a new series all about cooking. I'm going to be teaching you tips and tricks and easy recipes that you can do in your own kitchen. Alright, today we're going to talk about knife skills. So I'm going to teach you a little bit about each of these three knives I have here, and then show you how to chop up a bunch of different vegetables, and at the end I'm going to share a really quick and easy recipe that you can use all the vegetables in. The first knife I'm going to talk about is this little one. This is called a paring knife, and this is really good for small jobs, like taking the stem out of a strawberry or a tomato, or cutting up olives or small things. So that's what this is really good for. The next knife is the serrated knife, and this is probably the most dangerous and painful if you cut yourself with it, so be very careful with these. These are good for cutting lettuce leaves because it helps them not to brown because you're cutting through instead of pushing down on them. It's also good for things with tough skins like tomatoes or apples, anything that has kind of that tough skin that sometimes the regular knife doesn't cut through. That's what this is really good for. Alright, the last knife I'm talking about today is this one, which is the largest of the three. It's also the most used knife that I own. It's called a chef's knife if you're looking for it in the store. And it's really good for almost everything, except what I mentioned, that the serrated knife is for like meat and stuff. That's all for the serrated knife, but most of the vegetables or fruits or anything that you're going to be cutting up, you're going to be cutting with this chef's knife. So you have to have one of these. Alright, a lot of people will hold a chef's knife like this or like this, but don't hold it that way. The way you want to hold it is you're going to take your two pincher fingers right here, these ones, and those are actually going to go on the blade. The other three are going to go on the hilt, so wrap them around. Now I'm left-handed, so you'll do this probably right-handed. And then hold the knife like that. This gives you much more leverage and control over the blade, whereas like this, the blade is a little bit wobbly. Like this, you'll have a lot more stability. Okay, let's start chopping up some vegetables. So today I'm going to show you how I chop up mushrooms, a carrot, sugar snap peas, a bell pepper, broccoli and cauliflower, cabbage, and some kielbasa. And then these will all go into a dish that we'll make later. Okay, let's start with the carrot. So one big rule of chopping things up is when they're round like this, which a lot of things are, then you want to make them flat so that they don't roll around on your cutting board. So I'm going to take my knife, remember 3 fingers, and then pinch it. I'm going to cut off just a sliver of the end, not much. And then I like to cut off this tip as well, just because, I don't know, that's how I was taught. I put all my veggie scraps into a bag, and then I make vegetable stock out of it. So I will show you how I make that vegetable stock in another video. So then I have my ends cut off. I'm going to cut it kind of right down the middle where it starts getting really thick versus the really thin part. And then each of these, the thin part I'm going to leave just as it is, but this thick part, because it'll be a lot bigger, and so that I have a little more stability, I'm going to take my fingers, wrap it around, and then my knife is going to go through. This way I won't cut myself, but I'm going to cut it right down the middle. When you're pushing down, remember to keep your fingers up and out of the way of the knife. Then I have this nice flat surface, excuse me, so that I can cut really easily. And then I'm just going to cut these fingers like you're playing a piano or gripping a baseball, so that your knuckles are out, your fingers are out of the way, and your knuckles become the guide for your knife. And then with this one, I'm just going to cut them into rounds. Again, like you're gripping a baseball. Fingertips out of the way. Make sure you tuck that thumb in. And rock the knife. I'm not using a lot of downward pressure here. Instead, I'm sliding the knife forward, and that gives it the leverage it needs to cut through even the hard vegetables like this. Okay, let's do our mushrooms next. So you can eat the stem of the mushroom, but I prefer to take it off and put that in my vegetable stock mix because it gives the vegetable stock really good body. And then I have, again, a flat surface so that this doesn't roll around when I'm trying to cut it. Okay, then I'm just going to take these and slice them into thin strips. Once again, getting all my fingers out of the way. Just like that. I've just quickly wiped down my board, and I'm going to move on to the sugar snap peas. The first thing you want to do with a pea is take the end, this end right here, and I just snap it off and then pull that little tendril off with it. That is just kind of a tough and bitter thing. You could eat it if you left it on, but it does get bitter and tough and stringy because it is a string in your meal. So I just like to take it off. Again, you just take the end, pinch it with your fingernail, and then lift straight up. And that all comes off with it. Alright, once you have all of those off, when you have something small like this or like a green bean, a really good way to chop them quickly and efficiently is just to stack them. So of course they're not going to stack super neatly, but you want to try and get the same kind of sizes together. And you can make a couple stacks, just like that. And then I'm going to take my knife, again, hold it the way I showed you, and I'm just going to cut these right in half. And that is all I'm doing to those. This one was kind of small, so I just left it intact. And yeah, they're super easy and add really great flavor to lots of different things, cooked, or you can just snack on them as is. Okay, next I'm going to do a bell pepper. And the bell peppers have this big stem, and a lot of people will just like cut it in half or cut the sides off, but I like to just literally get my fingers in there. Maybe this one doesn't want to work. There we go, and pop it in, break this apart, and pop it out. Then you're not wasting any of the bell pepper by cutting the top off. And it's easier. So next I'm just taking out all the seeds and this excess vein. The veins, again, are edible, but just not very pleasant to eat. So we're just taking them out and the seeds. Now, in this case, if your knife, your chef's knife, is not sharp enough to get through the bell pepper skin, you could also use the serrated knife. I do that sometimes. And make sure when you're using the chef's knife, you're going to cut from flesh side to skin side. If you're using serrated knife, you're going to start on the skin side, cut through the skin, and then through the flesh. So I'm just going to cut this into strips. Just, I don't know, yay thick. It doesn't have to be exact, but you want them to be close in size so that they all cook evenly. And then just like I did with the snap peas, I'm going to kind of bunch them together. Hold them with my hand, like so. Come on. And then just dice them. Then you can kind of go in, and if there's any like bigger pieces, cut them smaller. But in general, that looks good to me. Next step is cauliflower. And cauliflower can be a bit tricky because a lot of times when you buy it, it has its leaves still on. And what I do, all I do is I break off any of the larger leaves as far down as you can so that it starts revealing the florets. So just break off all of the leaves. And the leaves, again, can be used in your vegetable stock, so I put all of those in my vegetable scrap bag as well. Alright, now that I can see a little bit better where the florets are, I'm going to take this on its head with the stem up. Move those out of the way. Stem up, florets down, and I'm going to take my knife and just find like an opening, and I'm just going to take it and go straight down in like this. And then across and pull it off. And I'm just going to keep doing that around the whole thing. Now it's really easy. You just take any of the smaller ones that are the size you want, pull them off and set them aside in your bowl or wherever you're putting them, and you can just kind of break a lot of them into the size that you want. Like this is one big one. I can just pull that off, pull this apart. So once you get it off the stem, cauliflower is really easy and can mostly be done by hand. There are a few, so here. This is a good example. This is a fairly large piece. You wouldn't want to eat that like it is. So I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to go right down the middle. And then you can see all the branches almost of the thing. So I'm just going to go in almost through those branches so that I have a big chunk of the stem left over. And then all of these little pieces are ready for my meal. Alright, that looks like enough for my recipe, which is about half of this head of cauliflower. So the rest of it I'm going to put into a baggie and save. I can put it in a soup, I can rice it and use it in place of rice. Cauliflower is really versatile. You can roast it and just eat it as a side dish. Next is broccoli, and broccoli is really similar to cauliflower, but it doesn't have those big leaves on the outside. Sometimes it has these little ones. You can just kind of pull those off. But again, I'm just going to take it and kind of perch it on its side, hold the stem, and then kind of just cut the florets off. Once I break all those outer pieces off, you can see there's still a lot more stem. So again, I'm just going to cut that excess stem off. Alright, we've got 2 things left. Next is cabbage. Now, I've already cut this cabbage in half and used some of it in a different recipe. So obviously, once you have your whole cabbage, I like to cut it in half and then place it on its flat side so it's not rolling around, and cut it in half again. So you'll have 4 quarters. And then what you want to do is you want to take this stem out because it's going to be really tough and hard to cook and eat. So I'm just going to lean it up against it and cut that out. Just that much. It's really not much at all. Then I'm going to take this piece that I have left. I'm going to place it again kind of flat side down. And depending on how big you want the leaves, you can cut it straight from here like this. Or since I want it a little bit thinner, I'm going to be cutting it in half again. And then I'm going to cut really thin strips. Alright, last but not least is kielbasa. So I'm only going to be using half of this. They're kind of a weird shape, as you can see. So you don't want to just start slicing down it. Instead, what I do is I cut it right in half at kind of the pinnacle of the round. I'm going to set this aside. And then if I want it in rounds, I'm just going to start slicing it like I would. Then you have rounds. But for this particular recipe, I want it in half moons like the carrots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hold it right here at this highest point, and I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to move my fingers kind of down where I'm taking my knife, right in half. Then I'm going to nestle it into one another